the first thing that you need to think about is what employers will be looking for. And it'll be very different than what they were looking for pre-crisis. So to help you understand that in pre-crisis, the unemployment rate was very, very low, and employers were really struggling to find the right talent. And they needed people to have certain hard skills because they didn't want to spend a lot of time training them. They needed them to hit the ground running. So employers would have been looking for these hard skills, these skills that you meant you could do the job as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Post crisis, they're going to be looking for a lot more. They're going to be expecting a lot more from you. And that's because there'll be more choice. Now, you hear all the time about the idea of supply and demand, the law of supply and demand. Well, just think about that in this case. When the crisis is over, there's going to be thousands of people looking for work and competing for the same job. So that means there'll be a lot of supply, but not as much demand, because what we're also now learning is that a lot of these companies are not going to bring back all their workers. They're not going to rehire or grow their businesses to the levels that they were at before. The truth is, many companies are going to scale back and stay smaller in order to maintain profitability and try to gain back some of the losses that they had so that they can become a more stable business and then start to hire again. So there'll be, a lot fewer jobs available post-crisis, which is going to drive up the competition between job seekers. So if that's the case, now employers will have to, it's not even a case of being pickier, will have to have more criteria in order to choose. Because right now, if you were to just base it on experience like they were pre-crisis, it would be like having this huge bushel of apples, 100 apples in a bushel, and they all pretty much look the same. How do you pick one? Well, now you're going to have to start to add in all these little things. Are you, if you're going to eat the apple, are you hungrier today? So you need the apple to be bigger, or do you want the apple to be a certain color or to be shinier? And the reality is hiring is discrimination. And people don't like to hear that, especially because there's certain discrimination that's certainly illegal in protected classes. But when it comes down to the final selection, all things being equal on your experience, there's going to be these other skills, these soft skills, these things about you that they will help them decide which person to choose. And that's what we need to think about right now. And what is that? It's professional presence. So your professional presence is how you project your knowledge, your skills, your wisdom, how you project what kind of person you'll be to work with, and how you communicate, how you connect with other people. It's the total package. Right? Think about your presence, how people see and react to you, how they respond to you. And so you have nonverbal presence, which is how you look, right? Your appearance. We say people hear what they see. It's a famous quote by an actress named Doris Day. And what it simply means is that people have preconceived notions and make associations. So when they see your look, what you're wearing, that sort of thing, it starts to form an impression. And in their mind, they start to hear things. And that's where that comes from. So that's part of the nonverbal professional presence. And, depending on what industry you're in or what skill level you're at, you may dress a certain way because of that. So I think of, for example, there are some iconic examples of nonverbal professional presence. One of them would be Steve Jobs, the way at the end he always wore a turtleneck and jeans. Or Mark Zuckerberg, who's always wearing the same color t-shirt and jeans. These are conscious efforts to look and feel a certain way. Their choice is sending a message about how they look at the world, and people interpret that, right? Whereas you might go into a law office and see somebody really dressed up in a suit. That's also meant to impress in a certain way. Or if you were to go into a creative agency where you needed them to have a lot of cool ideas, they might dress in a very edgy fashion, right? Very creative to represent who they are. So there's this nonverbal professional presence that becomes important. But really, the verbal, what we say and what we do, is going to play an even bigger role in how people see us. And what we've learned through studies is that post-crisis, employers are looking for something specific. They're looking for traits that will help them get through a crisis situation. So let's look at those a little bit. The first one is vision. So when you're giving off a professional presence, you're going to want to be able to articulate and talk in a way that says, hey, I can see the future. I can see possibilities. I can see opportunities. After this is over, Employers aren't going to want to hire someone that in their professional presence, the way they talk and act, they sound negative. They sound defeated. They, shoot down ideas. They find problems with things. I'm not saying that you should be Pollyannish or that you should be overly optimistic. It's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm saying is vision sees possibilities. Vision focuses on what could happen more than what can't happen. And so you want to think about your professional presence and how you're giving that impression off that you have vision, that you can see the future, and that you can see opportunities. The second aspect of professional presence post-crisis that you're going to want to really develop and project is humility. There are going to be lots of people unemployed. Right now, I saw a stat as of this week that said in the US alone, we're somewhere between 25 to 45% unemployment, depending on where you are. That is higher than the highest we ever had in the Great Depression. Now, again, when this is over, a lot of jobs will come back, but not all of them. So we're going to need a lot of humility in order to show the fact that we understand how lucky we are to be on a job interview, to be considered for a job when we know so many other people are looking and a lot of other people aren't going to be landing jobs in the near future. So projecting that humility, very important post-crisis. The third thing is practical knowledge, also called practical wisdom. So one of the things you're going to need to give off is the fact that I've taken all that I've learned in my life, in my career, and I've thought about how I can use it to the advantage of my employer. That I have experienced a lot of things and I've learned from them and I've grown from them. And now I want to use that growth to your advantage as my employer. So that's very, very key. When you're in an interview and they're asking you questions, you need to talk about your past experiences in a way that can show them that, hey, I'm smarter and stronger and have more value as a result of all these things that have happened to me. And that's why I'm excited to use that, added knowledge and experience and strength for you. And there's a very specific way that you need to be able to communicate that without coming across cocky or like you're bragging or you're overconfident. Remember what I said, you need humility. So you need vision, you need humility, and you need this practical knowledge. So you can see that there's a really fine balance here that you need to develop. This is why your professional presence, developing it as a skill in terms of how you're pushing yourself out to the world, is so important. The fourth one is composure. So after a crisis, a lot of people are going to have some kind of post-traumatic stress. And there are predictions that very large numbers of people will have post-traumatic stress disorder. However, I was just reading today that in crisis of this magnitude, we will actually maybe not see as much post-traumatic stress disorder as we think. We will see something called post-traumatic growth. When something like this happens to so many people simultaneously, we don't feel singled out. We don't feel like this is happening just to me. And so post-traumatic stress disorder comes from, hey, this happened to me and nobody can possibly understand it. And I'm very stressed out and I don't know how to cope. But when you're surrounded by lots of other people who are going through the same thing and they're all openly sharing how they're coping and they're all working through it together, there is this exciting thought process that we can create post-traumatic growth and it can happen a lot quicker. Why am I telling you this? Well, a sign that somebody is in post-traumatic growth mode would be composure. They would not be stressed. They would not talk in a negative way or be shaky or seem, scared, which is not something you're going to want to present in an interview, right? You're going to want to be able to show composure, that you are okay, that you're not overly stressed, that you're not overreacting to what's happening. Yes, it's traumatic, but that you can stay neutral. Neutral is not, you don't have to be overly optimistic or, fake positive, but at least neutral and composed and not looking rattled or frustrated or scared. And then I already hinted at it. The last one is neutral thinking. So every time you talk, there is some subjectivity to it, meaning you put your values and your beliefs and your feelings into what you're saying. If you are projecting anything negative, that comes through. Even the best people who think that they can hide it can't. There are so many tells, as they say in poker, so many giveaways when somebody is secretly negative or stressed or frustrated. Neutral thinking is really just looking at the facts, not attaching emotion or feeling, not assuming that something is bad or good. It just is, and working with what you have. And this is a very important aspect of professional presence because as we start to hire back, employers will be looking for people with fresh perspective. They'll be looking for people who aren't going to bring a lot of baggage with them. And if you think about it, sometimes they won't hire people back because they're going to feel like those people are going to come back and want to talk about the good old days and how it used to be and want to get back to those days that are completely gone and will never come back. So a neutral thinker wouldn't do that. They wouldn't look back. They would look forward. They would look at what they have in front of them, what is the reality, and what can they do with that reality. That's what a good neutral thinker does. And being able to convey that in your professional presence is huge.